Hi and welcome to this video. In this video, we are going to take a look at what is VMware's Tanzu Mission Control. Now, a lot of organizations that have development teams managing or running applications on Kubernetes tend to have multiple Kubernetes clusters instead of one big giant cluster. And the reasons for that could be varied. One reason might be that companies want to have multiple cloud endpoints to deploy their application into, and hence they have two different Kubernetes clusters sitting in each cloud. Or there might be different streams or different pipelines of development that need different Kubernetes endpoints. However, if you think about maintaining and managing these clusters, each cluster is its own security domain in the sense that each cluster needs its own role-based access control, each cluster needs to have its own security definition, so on and so forth. Managing multiple clusters can be challenging, and that is where Tanzu Mission Control comes in. VMware's Tanzu Mission Control is a unified platform that brings together management of different Kubernetes clusters that are spread across different cloud and allows operation teams to define consistent policies around security and access control throughout these different clusters. So let's take a quick look at Tanzu Mission Control. I'm now logged into Tanzu Mission Control. As you can see, I have multiple clusters that were either provisioned into AWS using my AWS account, or I've attached existing Kubernetes clusters from Azure, from vSphere, from Google Cloud into Tanzu Mission Control. And as we attach our provision clusters, and if we get into any of the single cluster, you can see Tanzu Mission Control provides component health of various Kubernetes objects. It will show you the number of nodes that are part of that cluster, the various namespaces that this cluster has, including all the system namespaces, the various workloads or the deployments that were created within this cluster. And also, if we get into the deployments, you can get more data around, for example, the YAML file that was used to create this deployment, the usage in terms of resources, etc. Another thing that we can do with this particular cluster is run inspections. Currently, inspections let you test the upstream conformance for that particular Kubernetes cluster. Inspections can also be plugged to define or validate different industry standards for these clusters and how they're operating. Now, going back to clusters, what can we really do with these clusters once we have brought them under Tanzu Mission Control's umbrella? We can create cluster groups. These cluster groups are logical entities that will define a group of clusters. In my case, we have created different cluster groups based on different pipelines, for example, development, production, and staging. Now, if you get into one of the cluster group called development, you'll see that this cluster group consists of various clusters coming in from AWS, Azure, and vSphere. Now, at the same time, there's a different logical group that goes a level deeper than the cluster, which is called workspaces. Workspaces is again a logical grouping of different namespaces that are spread across different clusters. If you look at the Acme Fitness Dev Staging workspace, I have different namespaces for Acme Fitness app created on these different clusters that are coming in from Google. Some are from vSphere and some are from AWS. Now, once we have defined workspaces and cluster groups, which is kind of logically grouping things together, we can go ahead and use policies to define consistent policies across these different cluster groups and workspaces. There are various policies that Tanzu Mission Control provides. The common one that can be applied to both cluster groups and workspaces is an access policy. Tanzu Mission Control brings an identity from VMware Cloud Services and will let you define which users or user groups have what level of access per cluster or even per namespace. At the same time, you can define an image registry policy that on the workspaces that defines which container registries have access to deploy into these clusters or namespaces. You can also define a network access policy that defines whether egress control is allowed or not into these different clusters or namespaces. Similarly, we have a pod security policy, again, that will help you define consistent pod security policies across a bunch of clusters. The idea being, once you create this policy into any of this node, whether it's a cluster or a workspace, the policy flows down into various clusters that are part of that group, and not requiring an admin to log into individual clusters and manage the same policy at that particular cluster. Tanzu Mission Control is going to automate in the backend. It is going to talk to these different clusters and create that consistent policy automatically. So this was a quick overview of Tanzu Mission Control. Thank you for watching this video.
Well, hello everybody, welcome back. We are getting ready for our next talk. Kerry, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Awesome. Well, welcome, Kerry. Schaffer, we are going to listen to your talk on how to implement and manage award-winning platform to enable developers. I'm so excited.
That's awesome. I'm really excited too, especially since we actually just won the award. So you guys are hearing it pretty fresh off the presses. So it's exciting stuff for us.
Awesome. I'm going to turn it over to you. Let us hear the good news.
Okay. So in this talk, I'm going to talk about how to implement and manage an award-winning platform. As I said, and I'll go into the award a couple slides in, but we just recently won this award, so I could talk about this all day and all night, which I'm sure you guys will get bored after a while. But hopefully there's some pearls of wisdom in this that everybody can take from it and hopefully implement into their own organizations. So first I'm going to tell you who One Magnify is, because I see about 400 people on here, and I bet you maybe 10 of them know. And then I'll talk about how we actually did the implementation and management of our platform, go through some of our actual platform outcomes, and then have time to take questions as well. So the question is, who is One Magnify? And One Magnify is a strategic marketing company that creates campaigns to solve customer challenges backed by data and analytics-driven decisions that are delivered with world-class technology solutions from our 6 global offices. So that sounds like a lot of strategic talk there. But really, it boils down to, we're a marketing technology and analytics company. We're a small to medium-sized business that do work, that mostly we do work for Fortune 500 companies. So you've all heard of them, even though you haven't heard of us. One thing I enjoy about One Magnify is we have over 100 data scientists, and we deliver our solutions with world-class technology, including having cloud partnerships, and then also we have on-prem the Tanzu Platform. So that's what this presentation is going to be about. So who am I? So I'm a senior director at One Magnify. I've been here for 17 years. I have a background in both development and infrastructure, probably because I was in IT before separations of duties was a real strong thing. So I have some tenure there. I'm a Tanzu Vanguard leader. I'm wearing my Tanzu shirt, or my Vanguard shirt. I don't know if anybody, you probably can't see it because only so much camera space. I am the One Magnify Tanzu Platform owner. So that is what I do at One Magnify, along with working on special projects. And then I'm a proud dog mom and rescue dog advocate. If it wasn't for the fact that I hadn't seen my team in the last week, you guys would see a lot more pictures of my dogs in this presentation. Typically when I'm in the office, I'm missing all of my dogs, and this week I've actually been missing my team. So it's been a hard transition being fully working from home. So what is the award we won? We actually won the CIO 100 award for innovation based on work we've done on our Tanzu platform. Later in the deck, I'll actually go through 2 use cases of solutions that were pivotal to winning the award. We delivered them on the Tanzu platform, which allowed us to accelerate the solution delivery. So it's part of the award was the innovation work we've done, but I would actually say at its core, the ability to deliver that innovation was enabled by the platform. My selfish take on that, being the platform owner. So another great thing about One Magnify is we've been repeatedly recognized as one of the best places to work in all of our areas that we have offices that do these type of these type of surveys. So we've been winning these awards since 2011. And my personal story about One Magnify is I joined, like I said, 17 years ago. And my plan was to stay for 2 years because at that time I was young in my career and I thought you stay at a place for 2 years and then you move on and that's how you grow your career. But I've been here ever since and I have not found a reason to leave. I've only found reasons to stay. It's a great place to work. And one of the things that I am really proud of with our organization is and this is very unusual for IT in general, just based on the total number of women in IT, but almost 40%, or actually over 40% of our IT employees are women. This slide in our general capabilities deck has, you know, a bunch of other people in it, but I actually took it out and put in some of our women in IT because I want to celebrate that. Another thing that I want to celebrate is when Magnify gives all their employees the opportunity to volunteer and do community work. So one of the things we do that is exciting, at least for me in the IT space, is we have a program called Experience IT. We are one of the founding companies with several other large companies in Detroit, some of them being the Quicken families, which I'm sure most people know. And really what we do is we said, okay, we have a shortage of IT people. We're not the only city in the nation that has this problem, but Detroit has a very strong IT presence, probably because we have the big three and we have places like Quicken. But we found that we were having a hard time recruiting IT staff. Part of it being that as kids were coming out of college, they want to go fun, cool places like California, not necessarily want to stay in Detroit. So we said, we have to solve this problem. So we worked with our partners and we came up with it's an internship training and internship program that we actually administer between the companies and educational institutions backed by workforce agencies. And we actually train these people who have an aptitude in IT that probably wouldn't have had a chance to get into the IT space. We train them and we've actually had over 200 people graduate from the program and they've been hired into the organizations that contribute to the program. So we've had great success there. I've had a couple of people on my team that came from Experience IT, and we have some of our up and coming leaders and some of our groups that came through Experience IT as well. So I'm very proud of that. And it's been also locally and nationally recognized. That's kind of also a cool thing. So but the big question I think is, how did we implement and manage our platform so that we foster an environment that enables our developers to their fullest extent? So from the very beginning, we had the automation enabled mindset. Our goal was to automate everything that we could. I mean, we wanted to audit to the nth degree. We wanted to be able to have our developers spending their time doing development, not fighting configuration files and working with infrastructure, fighting back and forth, whose problem is it? Is it your problem? Is it my problem? We've all been there. So we thought through automation we could get consistent outcomes. So the first thing we did was we automated the platform pipeline. So we used Concourse and we automated everything from our upgrades to our patching and everything in between. And we've actually found that we're patching more often. I know the last speaker was talking a lot about security, which only helps the security of our platform because it's getting updated weekly. So that's pretty quick in our, in an enterprise environment. And then for our developers, that we worked with them and we developed a DevOps pipeline using GitHub. So they can go in and they can have a process that goes through, and a lot of things that they were doing manually, like scanning their code and running it through, looking for vulnerabilities, things like that, all get automated and basically spit out a report as part of their GitHub commit. One thing I wanted to point out in here, and I think that this is very, very important for us because we move at a very fast pace in my organization, is that we did not remove their ability to CF push to the platform manually. I know that that seems a little crazy. You're thinking you automate everything, but you still give them that flexibility. There are times when we bring on projects or new components of a project faster than we can build out our GitHub pipeline for it. So in those cases, we don't want to slow the developers down. We want them to automate as much as possible because it makes their lives better, and we've actually seen great success with that. But we've also seen the cases where they have to do that CF push manually. So I think that that's a good thing to think about when you're implementing your platform. I say enable them, empower the developers, keep them working, keep them happy, you get better product. So to help with that, and I don't want to just say we enable our developers, I say on our platform team, we empower them. We created platform team open office hours. So initially we started out with 3 times a week we were meeting for 1 hour. And then we found that after about 6 months that we could cut it back to 2 times a week because we didn't have as many topics to discuss in those meetings. So we use those meetings to talk about things like, what can we do to make your life better? How can we improve the processes? What issues are you having? Can we solve them? In a lot of cases, we solve them right in that meeting because we have the right people in the room. We plan the migrations, the applications that are coming over the platform, and we talk about, you know, what tiles would you guys like to have? What would you like to have in lower environments to play with? What are the things you're thinking about that could make everything move faster and better for you? So in that meeting, we have infrastructure people who are now called platform operators, and the developers. And it's funny because people walk by when we're having that meeting because we have it out in a collaboration space, and it's kind of a weird group of people to see having fun together. There's a very positive energy about the meeting. People are laughing, people are talking. They've built a real collaborative relationship between the team. And I actually feel like it gets work done. The trust is there. Everybody knows that we're in it together. You know, everybody's held hands, and it's not the 2 silos. It's not infrastructure versus development, pointing fingers at each other saying, no, the problem's on your side, no, the problem's on your side. And from the platform standpoint and the development standpoint of everything that's going on the platform, we feel like there's a problem. Let's just figure it out. Let's just work together. And we actually have fun doing it, which seems odd, but it actually does work. So, so when we created our environments, part of when we created the environments and how we set up the configuration for things like orgs and spaces, we wanted to really think about maximum developer enablement. We wanted to empower those developers to be able to do their development work, to be able to do innovative solutions, to think of things that they could deliver that would wow and excite our clients. So we wanted to set up our environments to be able to do that. So the first environment we have, and I've heard in a lot of talks people say you should really have this environment. It kind of would surprise me if people don't, but I've heard that they don't. So I also encourage you to have a sandbox environment. The sandbox environment, we in our office, we auto apply the patches using the pipeline when they're available. So and then the same thing is true for upgrades, except we're a little bit more hands-on with that just because you have to pay a little bit more attention to that. One thing that I think is unique about our company is compared to what I've heard from other people. I've heard of people creating test applications in the sandbox environment. We actually have our developers deploy some of their real complex applications in our sandbox environment of both .NET, because we're about 70% .NET and about 30% Java. So we have them take some of those applications and apply them into the sandbox for us. And it's not for them to do their development testing. Their development testing all happens in pre-production. It's so that they can feel confident, and we can feel confident as a platform team that when we deliver those patches or those upgrades to pre-production, that we're not going to stop their work, because work throughput is very, very important to us. So we do that, we do our testing, and then once the testing is successful, it rolls into our pre-production area. In our pre-production area, we have both our development and stage environments. Originally, we had 5 environments. We had one that was development and one that we called QA or stage. And we found that it was too much to manage for the platform team, and the development team wasn't getting any benefit out of it either. So we basically looked at it and we said, you know, we could do both of these things since we have the sandbox environment. We're not likely to break dev. We're going to create one pre-production environment that has different orgs for development and stage. And then we actually created their spaces based on the product lines. And the reason we did that was because it made the most sense for our developers. Typically, developers are going to work on certain products, right? So they have a product suite that they work on. And if we actually create the security entitlements based on that, we can give them the flexibility of being able to work in those orgs and spaces and still protect the security of the other projects that don't have those developers working on it. So that was one of the ways that we were able to enable developers, but also, you know, secure our other products. So once changes get pushed from pre-production and they're ready to go to stage, they've gone through QA, everything's great, we push them to our 2 production environments. We have our Tanzu platforms are both on site. They're both on-prem on VMware, which I'm sure VMware is happy to hear, especially now that they just purchased the product. So we have a Detroit office environment and we have our Wilmington office environment. And so once those changes go to production, they go to both environments. That gives us failover, gives us redundancy, you know, and most of that is actually all of that is automated. So that happens, you know, pretty much while people are sleeping in most cases. So that's great. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the actual business value that won us the award. So I'm going to talk about 2 different use cases. I can't go too much into detail about the use cases because we didn't get customer approval to do so. We're going to do it also. We're going to try to get approval for our press release, but we couldn't get it for that. So I'm sure that I can't actually mention them by name to you guys as well. So the first one is we had a customer that came to us and said, we need you to create a website and microservice to handle orders for a new vehicle that we're launching. And it came quick. It happened very, very quickly. The team, basically, the development team, had they not been able, they would not have been able to deliver as much as they did because, you know, we got such a late ask and we had such a large amount of work to do. And they were already pushing crazy hours. So having any type of blockers in there was really going to be difficult for them to deliver. So the team actually delivered it. The customer was extremely delighted. The site, additionally, because we set it up on the Tanzu platform, it could scale as the orders increased. And we actually saw the scaling happen because, you know, the launch was very successful. Very happy for our client that, you know, that the orders came in and the scale of the orders was higher, I think, than even the client had anticipated. So that was, you know, something that we were able to do and deliver for our customer. We made them happy. We made our customer successful. We're successful. So that's great for us. The second application I'm going to talk about is a little bit different. We were asked by a client to launch a marketing application for distributors to help their retailers that sell their goods actually market to their customers. So it's kind of a B2B, right? So we went through this and actually launched the platform, the application on the platform. At go live, the client kept needing additional changes. So right, they saw, hey, we see that it's doing this. Either we really want it to do this, or maybe we want it to do this and we want it to do these 3 other things too. So they kept needing those additional changes. They wanted them as fast as possible while the buzz was still, you know, high about this new application that got launched. They wanted the distributors going in and using this app. And so we were able, through the pipelines and the efficiencies we had built, to deliver value. And we were able to push enhancements throughout the day. So at 9 a.m., the customer saw enhancements 1 and 2. And at noon, they saw 3 and 4, and their minds were blown. We exceeded their expectations, and, you know, their distributors were happy and were able to use the tool to market to their customers. So that was very, very successful for us. And I would say that the application development teams did an amazing job on these. I mean, kudos to them. There's actually pictures here of some of them. I mean, some of the most fantastic developers I've ever worked with. But the platform allowed them to move quicker, more efficient, allowed them to move quicker. They didn't have roadblocks like, hey, you know, you got to set up the network and have to worry about things like that. Really, it was seamless for them, and they were able to push their changes without taking down the apps. So it was a big deal for them. And I think it helped them, considering that they were already working 8 hours a week. I don't know if they could have delivered as much as they had delivered had they not had the platform. So let's talk about some of the outcomes. So we've had the platform for about a year, and we actually just went through recently and measured all of our outcomes of the platform. So we've got about a year's experience under our belt. And from a talent management perspective, which I feel like is really important to us as an organization, as you saw in our earlier slides about being, you know, one of the best places to work, it was important to us that our employees have great work-life balance, that they can deliver, that they're not frustrated. We want them to do their work, be happy, be innovative, be in their best space to be doing development. So What we saw is actually environment setup is 99% quicker because it went from being about 60 hours to create a new environment. So about a week and a half for them just to work with the infrastructure team, put in all the tickets, you know, and do all of that, to about 5 minutes with Tanzu, because they can basically create the containers, push and scale, put it on auto scale, and you know, they've got an environment up and running that they can use. And then we've actually seen our development delivery hours decrease by about 33% per release, which means that they're spending more time. That 33% is time that they can spend doing cool and innovative things rather than putting in tickets and managing configurations and networking, things that they don't enjoy. Our production management, I did this one in an annual scale because I think it's really impressive. Because the platform actually is self-healing, we've seen 38% reduction in hours spent doing production management. Now, there will always be defects and bugs. That is just a thing that happens with software, right? We're not going to get rid of that. But when you're talking about 4,600 hours, you're talking about 2 FTEs, right? So we can decrease 2 FTEs, so 2 developers can come out of like the overhead of production work to now doing fun, cool, innovative stuff. So another really good story for us is the operating system upgrades. So when you think about an old VM environment, I guess they're not that old, but you know, they're not containers, so they're old now. So when you think about a VM environment, on your VMs, every VM for every application has its operating system, and every one has a slightly different configuration. So when you're talking across, you know, something like 500 applications, doing upgrades, you have to go through each application. You have to do full testing. You have to, you know, make sure that the application still is going to work. You have to fix the bugs and configurations, things that changed after you do the upgrade. And we actually saw that with all of our applications in VM environments, we were spending about 5,500 hours a year doing upgrades. Things like, you know, Red Hat, Windows is the obvious one, Linux, things, you know, I mean, obviously I think I just was a little redundant, but you know, there's other ones too that I'm not thinking of right off the top of my head, but there's all these upgrades you have to do that roll under this bucket, and now we can do it in less than 8 hours. So I think that that's a pretty great story in and of itself, because nobody enjoys doing that work. Project manager that we have doing the OS upgrades project wants to pull her hair out because everybody's working on new stuff. They don't want to do these OS upgrades. We have to do them for security. So she's got security coming at her from one way, and the dev team's coming at her from the other way, saying, we have like real work to do. And Kerry saying, yeah, it's great till we get, you know, an attack. But so this just made that so much easier, 8 hours to deliver an OS upgrade, because you're really only patching the OS once when you're on the platform. That's great. So additionally, our infrastructure team used to spend 56 hours of each of their years, each year on the weekend, basically from Sunday around 11 or Saturday around 11 p.m. until at some point 9 a.m. on Sunday, coming into the office, or sometimes working from home, but a lot of times still coming into the office and giving up that weekend. Because like when you really think about it, if you know that you have patch weekend on Sunday, you're not going out on Saturday and drinking some beers with your friends. You're not, you know, going to the bar that night. You're not doing all those things that you would normally do. So you kind of lose your Saturday, and then Sunday you're sleeping. So you really lose your whole weekend, even though we're only saying 56 hours. So they've been able to do through the automation and the fact that those patching cycles can run during the day, is we've recovered 1,120 hours of employee weekend time. So we've recovered that for them. So they don't have to worry about it. We can patch the platform, and then they can just, you know, sleep their nights and go out on the weekends and do whatever you do on the weekends. So it's been a really good story for us from a talent management outcome. So the bumper here says that it improves our employee morale by allowing them to work on modern architecture. That's another thing that I probably didn't impress enough. The team is extremely happy about getting to work on new and innovative things and spending their time actually getting to, you know, figure out new solutions and find better ways to do the things that they were doing. And then it also reduces frustration by removing mundane tasks and off-hours deployments. So, you know, even when you think about it, we talk about patching, how that has to be after hours. In a traditional application management practice, I know the last project I worked on, we would have these weekend builds. So we'd have to basically start the build on Friday night, and it was like build weekend night, right? So you had to be online Friday. It usually finished Saturday around, you know, 1, 2 a.m. So you really didn't want to go to sleep because, you know, you had to be up and, you know, and you had to test that application to make sure that the build went properly. And then you had, you know, if it went well, you had the rest of your weekend. If not, you had no weekend. So even on the development side, we removed their weekend and night tasks that they had to do. So equally important is the operational outcomes. So these are the things that were better for the organization. So that's the difference. Talent management's more about the people. Operational outcomes are more for the organization. They do go hand in hand, but it's important to talk about both because there's a little difference in benefits depending on who's viewing the slides. Like, so if you're an employee, you care more about like, how does this make my life better? If you're somebody like me, who's a manager, you care more about how does this make us more money or make us better at our jobs, or what can we sell to our clients? This is the operational outcomes. So we've actually launched 14 apps on the platform in just a little bit under a year at this point. We went through the hours to launch a new application in the last slide, but it's important to reiterate because the developers, from the developer standpoint, it only takes them 2 minutes. The whole environment will take, you know, 5 minutes total to build, but you know, 3 minutes of that they're just sitting there watching the screen. So, you know, it's really only 2 minutes for them, will work for them. So additionally, through release automation, we actually reduce the development hours per deployment. That's where a lot of those efficiencies we saw in the talent management portion came from, because for them to even push a change or an enhancement or a bug, they had to do it after hours. They had to line up the infrastructure team. They had to get their project manager involved. We had to plan. We had to get, you know, I mean, you still have to involve QA, but not so much like, you know, before and after hours. So it was kind of a big ordeal to get a deployment for them. So now with release automation on Tanzu, it's less than a minute, 0 tickets. They can do it in the middle of the day. They don't have to wait till they go home. From a production management standpoint, we've had 0 outages on the platform. We ran about an average of 7 outages across all of our applications a month before that. So the fact that we have 0 outages on the platform is pretty impressive. I mean, there's been other things that have impacted applications that are hosted on the platform, but the platform itself has been stable, which is what you want. And then we actually have applied. So remember, we said in the last slide, or I said in the last slide, that we did quarterly patching, which means we patched 4 times a year. And in the last year, we've applied 60 patches. So think about the security increase of applying those patches on a weekly basis rather than a quarterly basis. And in doing that, we've also saved those 1,120 hours of production patching. So, and that actually includes the OS upgrade. So in the last slide, we had the 5,500 hours and then the 1,100 hours. Both of those here are now done through the pipeline, 0 hours. So we've also, in addition to this, been able to offer our customers things like that were not easy for us before, things like high availability. That's something we could offer very easily to our customers now. We can do blue-green deployments. So for a lot of our customers, they'd like to see how 2 different campaigns might compare to one another. That in the past used to mean you had to have set up 2 different VMs and you had to have different routing and all that. But now with Pivotal, that all just makes it very, very easy. Tanzu, sorry, I'm still getting used to that. And then the platform has also allowed us to fix production issues and apply enhancements during the day without outages, which makes our customers happy. So I feel like it's a great story, both from the people side and then also from the organization side. And then as just you know, so that it's easy to see for people who may not understand, like, how does it make your life easier? Like, what were they doing before and what are they doing now? Because in a traditional deployment, all of those yellow steps were tickets that the developers had to put in and manage, make sure that they were done and done correctly and working with infrastructure to get them set up. And now they basically have through their automation, deployment automation, basically how we set up Git, it basically is one step. They commit their code, it goes through a series of steps. If everything passes, it just deploys. And so I love this picture because you see all these smiley people. It's a combination of developers and infrastructure people. They don't usually look that happy together. They usually sometimes, you know, they'll smile, but they'll side eye each other. There's no side eyeing happening here. They're very happy working together. So I think it's been a huge success. And if me talking about it isn't enough, I can show you this and let you see my people bragging about how happy they are. They're very excited about it from different aspects. The woman on the top left is one of our development managers. The woman on the top right is in our infrastructure group. So I have a good mix of people here, infrastructure and development. Everybody that is working on the platform is very excited to be working on it. They're getting to do new things. Their lives are being made easier. You know, it's just, it's been a huge success for us, and it's allowed us to spend our time developing solutions for our customers that, you know, ultimately won us the award. But, you know, without the platform, I would say that, you know, yeah, we still could have won it, but we might have had, you know, 6 employees in the hospital with the amount of time they had to work. So with that, that's basically the end of my presentation. I have my dog Sophie here. She's got her thinking cap on in case you guys have any questions.